RFK and Chris Buescher, the driver of the 17, are continuing the hot streak, this time winning at the regular season finale at Daytona. But Todd, this race had everything Daytona is known for. It had 2 and 3 wide racing. It had a little single file, a little bit of fuel strategy, a green flag pit cycle, and 2 spectacular accidents.
Yeah, definitely. The one everybody's talking about is Ryan Preece's flip. What was it, 10 times down the backstretch once he got airborne off the grass there? Great to see him walk out of that car in good shape.
Yeah, Ryan Preece was held overnight in a local hospital. His team SHR announced that Sunday morning he was released and heading back to North Carolina, so it will be great to see him back behind the wheel. The other big accident involved Ryan Blaney, a very scary accident where the car turns right head-on into the safer barrier, and it ends up being the biggest accident of the day. Multiple cars involved, and in the end, taking out the one car that could have beat Bubba Wallace on points. The 54 of Ty Gibbs eliminated.
Yeah, it was in a great position there. It looked like he was going to fight for the stage win, trying to build that points cushion towards the end. A push from his teammate, and his teammate was off center to the left. These cars don't line up very well, and got him loose. Big hit by Ryan Blaney. Good to see him walk away.
Yeah, the amount that the safer barrier moved, I used to call it a soft wall. The drivers have reminded me they're not soft. They're safer for sure. But the amount that safer barrier moves was really quite breathtaking. The amount the car collapsed. It was great to see Blaney get out and give an interview after the accident.
Yeah, it definitely was. I think the improvements we've seen, continual improvements that we've seen in this car and the racetracks, allows him to walk away from something that 20 years ago could have been a fatality.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a long week of rest and recovery to get back behind the wheel, bumps and bruises for sure. But the multi-car wreck was the storyline of the race because if this eliminated the 54, as we mentioned, then it comes down to the 23 of Bubba Wallace. As we climb on board the 23 car, you see he somehow, a little bit miraculously, a little bit lucky, a lot of skill, gets through this wreck, cars spinning everywhere, and all you see is really smoke.
Yeah, he does a good job of controlling the environment, going where the cars aren't, trying to avoid the smoke because he figures there's cars where there's smoke, and gets through this without any damage, gets stopped, continues to roll on.
So then it really just becomes, will it be a new winner? Later in the race, we had some opportunity. And when we talk about later in the race, the players involved for the race win were actually involved in this same accident. Let's ride on board with the 9 of Chase Elliott. He, like the 23, gets through without spinning out, without any real heavy contact.
Yeah, again, just heads up driving, slowing down when he needs to. When he sees the clearing, gasses up, and he continues on to fight for the end of the win.
Not so comfortable and not so safe for the 4 of Kevin Harvick and the 17 of Buescher. Riding on board with Kevin Harvick here, the wreck happens out in front of him. Now this car doesn't get through unscathed. You see contact spinning around, ends up being light damage.
Yeah, it looked like the 36 actually maybe had a lot of rear brake. When he got on the brakes there, kind of slid in the 4, spun him out, but just side-to-side contact to start with, and he recovered from this, stopped, and just worked his way forward. The one I thought was better was Chris Buescher.
Yeah, Chris Buescher gets spun in a hurry, roof flaps up. It's really quite surprising that the damage wasn't more. But the small things in a race, I was very impressed by the 17 staying calm, coming straight to pit road, putting 4 tires on this car. First of all, being able to drive into pit road, not needing a wrecker helped not lose a lap. And then coming to pit road, putting fresh tires on to not tear up the car driving around on flats.
Yeah, if he'd come 2.5 miles on a tire that was coming apart, it'd have destroyed his day. Smart move coming straight to pit road, getting things fixed up. Had a little bit of damage to the left rear quarter panel, but nothing that was just cosmetic.
And this wreck right here was the end of stage 2, which set up the final stage, which is outside of a fuel run. And for that reason, strategy played a part once again. The field itself kind of got a little single file, running the top. We covered it on NBC. A lot of part throttle, a lot of saving gas. Why does fuel mileage matter if you have to pit anyway?
Well, because that's the thing that dictates how long you'll have to be in your pit box. As you looked at this, the guys that were out front, and we saw this, the 14 car led so many laps of this race, they towed the train. They're wide open, throttle the whole time. In the broadcast, you guys did a great job of showing Chase Elliott. He was 50–60% throttle most of that run. Chase had to come down pit road, only needed a couple seconds of gas, where the 14 car needed to have another couple seconds of fuel. So it shuffled up the cycle in that green flag pit cycle.
So when you talk about shuffling up the cycle, it's speed on the racetrack, timing on and off pit road, and time in the box. You mentioned less fuel for some. But another situation that really split the field was a great decision. I'm going to call it the Fords, although there were 3 Hendrick Chevrolets mixed in, but the second group, Group A pits, Group B stays on the racetrack. That Group B runs 2 laps in the 46-second bracket. That's like 2 seconds. faster than the pack was running. Super organized. They pit, they service the car, they blend back on the racetrack in front of Group A and really cycled a bunch of cars to the front.
Yeah, and this is something I think that the Ford group does a really good job of in analyzing this. When the Chevrolet group, the other group that came first, comes to pit road, you know there's going to be a straggler or two that struggles on pit road. And that gives you, as part of, you said they got organized and they ran 2 seconds faster. They also had some stragglers back there that they were drafting up on. Took the couple laps to get that toe by them, and then when they come to pit road, they cycle out in front of the other group.
Yeah, so who did it help the most? The list is relatively long, but it's all the players. Kevin Harvick ended up cycling to the lead. The 9 of Chase Elliott gained some track position. The 17, the 6, the 10. So a lot of the players that we saw in the overtime finish, and that's really where this race was won.
Yeah.
Big accident from Ryan Preece brings out the caution. Now we see overtime. We see it a lot at the speedways. I thought the choose was pretty straightforward. Line up with your teammate. Hendrick on the bottom, RFK up top.
Yeah, if you looked at it, Kevin Harvick was going to pick whatever lane he did, and you had Chris Buescher and Brad Keselowski, teammates, second and third. They were going to pick the other lane and go nose to tail on that one. Pretty straightforward. The 9 car took behind Kevin Harvick, tried to push his way forward from there, and had his teammates lined up behind him.
So let's take a look at the final restart. As you mentioned with the choose, it puts Hendrick cars at the bottom, RFK up top. Harvick leads the bottom lane. So they get to the restart zone pretty square. At this point, it's just up through the gears. At the beginning, the 4 gets a little lead, but in the end, Brad, known as a great pusher, shoves the 17 out front through 1 and 2.
And lines up with the 17 and continues to push him through 1 and 2. Staggered right slightly here. Keeps him engaged and gives him a good momentum.
And I think this is the chance for the 6 to win the race, as he's pushing the 17 to the lead off turn 2, coming off the banking onto the backstretch right here. If we pause and take a look, Brad is thinking move to the bottom. He has this space out front, right? So he has some room in front of him where he can turn left. Well, the problem for him is right here. A foot? Yeah. 18 inches? It isn't much. So if we roll this forward, he's thinking turn left, and Harvick knows he is. He actually moves a little right and makes sure, no, you have to stay in the top lane.
It's the chess game of speedway racing, and both these guys understand it very well. If Brad gets to the bottom here, I think he clears the 17, but now he's got the 4 behind him. The 4 knows his opportunity to win is going to keep Brad pinned behind the 17, goes up and keeps him boxed in there.
Yeah, and when he moves back up, it stacks the top lane up. Kevin Harvick backs up to the bottom lane. Now it's RFK out front, 1 and 2. One other big moment in the race is right here. Exiting turn 4, I think the 4 is looking high. The 6 won't let him. The 6 purposely moves forward to the right, forcing the 4 to the bottom. I think Brad knows, hey, I want to push the 17, and we just did it around the top of 1 and 2. I'm going to do that again.
And I don't want to line the 4 up with its teammate, the 10, who's behind me. If you let him go to the top, then you're going to have the 4 and the 10 lined up. That's a great SHR tandem to their RFK tandem. So keeping him lined up with a 9, I think, was the right move.
Yeah, momentum on the bottom makes it look really like the first lap of the restart. We see the white flag pretty square at the front, and then second lap, same story. Brad Keselowski, the best pusher perhaps in NASCAR, pushes the 17 out. So now the big question is here. What does the 6 do? He has a gap back to the 10. We expect a push coming. If the 6 is going to pass the 17, I think the fans expect it here. I think Brad knows he needs to wait until the front stretch.
If Brad Keselowski takes the momentum of the 10 car right here and makes a move, he's going to put both of his cars where they end up in the back half of the top 10, because the run the 4 is going to get off of the nose of the 9 car is going to put him one way. If he blocks that, you're going to see the 22 come to the top side. He needs to stay disciplined right here. It's not the place to make the race-winning move.
He knows a run is coming, and the run does come. So as we extend this down through 3 and 4, let's look a little bit further back. On the bottom, you see that white car second in line. That's the 9 of Chase Elliott. He backs up to the 48. The 9 is going to get a big run, and it all goes wrong here. If we freeze it, that right there is the difference for Brad Keselowski. How do 2 cars behind him make the difference? If that 9 is forced to push the 4, the 4 goes forward with a ton of momentum. I think he gets to the 6 bumper, and that's going to allow the 6 to have a ton of momentum to go high or low. I think it's a drag race to the start-finish line. The fact that the 9 took the 4 3 wide, this is game over. I think at this point, there's no way the 17 has to defend anything.
And this goes back to when Brad blocked high on Harvick. He's lined Harvick up with a 9 car, and you know the 9 needs to, he's in a must-win situation. He's not going to just transfer the energy. He's going to go try to do what he did. This dictated the race end as a 1-2 for RFK.
Yeah, a 1-2 for RFK, which did not add a new winner to the playoffs, and for that reason, Bubba Wallace gets through in the 16th spot. So let's look ahead. Let's take a look at the playoff standings. All the playoff points are added in. What do you see in race 1?
You're going to see comers and goers. Darlington, the place too tough to tame. We'll see where the mistakes happen within these 16 playoff drivers. You've just got to put finishes together. If you're top 16 right now, if you can just hammer out 3 finishes, you'll be in a good spot because somebody will end up in a bad position with a race failure.
So if we take a look at the playoff standings, William Byron, Truex, Hamlin, Buescher. How about Buescher on the scene with those wins, now has a ton of playoff points. To the right side, you see already McDowell, Stenhouse, Harvick, and Wallace behind. But I'm with you, 16 gets whittled down to 12 in only 3 weeks. So I know winning is great, but I believe that finishes, and just lead lap finishes, is the recipe to advance out of round 1.
Yeah, this is the round we always said was base hits. We don't need to hit home runs, we just need to hit base hits. Do what we're capable of do, lead lap finishes, keep ourselves out of trouble, don't shoot ourselves in the foot. You'll get through to the round of 12.
Well, the regular season is behind us. We are 10 weeks from a champion, and that starts this week at Darlington, the first race of the Cup Series playoffs.